Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters on YouTube. My name's Petr Yan. Most of you know me as Kobe from the podcast. And today I want to take a closer look at the UFC because it finds itself in one of those situations that makes you wonder whether or not what you're seeing is real. And I'm not talking it's like the WWE here. This is not a fake sport. It's legit. But what happens sometimes is the UFC finds themselves in a position where they don't really have a truly marketable product at the time. And the situation is this. You have a number of champions that are relatively untouchable. Okay, so that's currently the case in a few divisions. Then you've got a number of legitimate contenders, only they've already been beaten by those champions. And that's the case in a lot of the divisions. So what you require really is some new blood, some new talent, some up-and-comers that can pose a legitimate threat to these juggernauts that are sitting on top. And there are a number of sort of marketed and hyped fighters that are getting close to that opportunity now. But what I want to know is, are these fighters the real deal? Or are they just a manufactured mirage by the UFC brass? Because we've seen that before and it could be happening again. So in this video, we're going to try and decide, are these fighters legit or are they very well polished fakes? Let's get into it. I'm going to begin with flyweight. And flyweight's pretty easy because it's really not applicable here. Until we get the Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno shit figured out, there really isn't anything else to talk about. So look forward to that. And then maybe we can discuss this further later on. When you get to bantamweight, it's different. So currently we got our champion, Aljamain Sterling. And he cemented himself with that second win over Petr Yan, which everyone thought, myself included, Yan was going to take relatively easily. Wasn't the case. Sterling dominated him, and Yan kind of had what I would consider a very bad strategy going into that fight. He did not use the advantages he had to himself, and as a result, lost it relatively easily to Aljamain Sterling. But in that division, we've also got two people coming up. So we've got Sean O'Malley, Suga Sean, and we've got Merab Dvalishvili. And they're two very different fighters, right? This is opposite ends of the spectrum. And before I get into whether or not I think they're the real deal or a fake, when I say fake, I'm just doing it for dramatic effect, okay? None of these guys are fakes. These are all legit fighters, right? All of them deserve to kind of be where they're at. It's whether or not they're legitimate contenders to those, elite fighters that are currently the champions in those divisions. And I'll begin with Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley is maybe the best pure striker in the bantamweight division. Right? His striking ability is off the charts, and to add to that, he's also very tall, right? Very tall, very long for the division. So he's got a significant advantage in the striking department over pretty much everyone at bantamweight. Although that isn't necessarily going to get you the win when it comes right down to it. So in two previous fights, one of which ended in a no contest due to eye poke, that was his last fight. And one previous to that, his only loss, because currently he's 15-1. But his only loss, both of those fighters took advantage of low kicks. Okay, they both punished him with low kicks, calf kicks. So even though they were the smaller fighter and did not have the range, they were able to close distance using, low kicks and kind of smother some of Sean O'Malley's offense. So that's an obvious weakness that he's had. Now, I'm sure he's working on it, but let's keep in mind, Sean O'Malley has not been in the UFC that long, right? He may be 15-1, but he's only had, X number of fights in the UFC. So expecting him to be a completely different fighter when he faces Petr Yan next, you can't expect that. It's just not going to happen. We're going to see the same Sean O'Malley we've seen before. And in this particular case, the Petr Yan matchup is a pretty good matchup for him. Okay, on paper, that's solid. Petr Yan likes to strike. He's a pure striker. So is Sean O'Malley, and you've already heard me say that he's probably the best striker in the division. The difference is Petr Yan hurts you when he hits you. Unless Sean O'Malley catches you with a perfect high kick. It's unlikely he's going to hurt you that bad. Okay, and we saw that in his Chris Matinho fight. Matinho went really went the distance. I mean, the fight was stopped with, I don't know, whatever it was, 45 seconds left or something. But it wasn't like Matinho was going down. In fact, the fight was stopped as Matinho was fighting back, and I think he actually landed the last shot of the fight before the fight was stopped, just because of the sheer amount of shots he had taken over the course of that fight. But Matinho took everything that Sean O'Malley had to offer. Everything. And it wasn't like he threw up much in the way of defense. Petr Yan is a significantly better defensive fighter. So is Aljamain Sterling. I really don't think Sugar Sean O'Malley is ready to fight the top competitors. Now, the Petr Yan fight aside, he has a chance to win there strictly because it's a striking contest, and maybe he outpoints Petr Yan, in that particular fight and gets his hand raised. I do not think he's going to knock out Petr Yan. He just doesn't possess the power, and Petr Yan's defense is quite good. It's excellent, in fact. So, really, I give the edge to Petr Yan in that fight, but don't be surprised if Sugar Sean O'Malley wins it. But that being said, if he goes on to fight Aljamain Sterling, Sterling's grappling ability will stifle whatever Sugar Sean has to offer, and unless he was to catch him with a lucky head kick, I do not see him beating Aljamain Sterling at all. He just doesn't have the complete MMA game yet to do that. So, in this case, I'm going to have to say Sugar Sean O'Malley is a fake when it comes to fighting for the title. Now let's look at Merab Dvalishvili, and this is, like I said, the opposite spectrum. He's a pure grappler. Pure. And that was fully demonstrated in his last fight against Jose Aldo. Okay, so Aldo has maybe one of the best takedown defenses in the bantamweight division. He's very strong for a bantamweight, right? He fought most of his career at featherweight, so when he came down to bantamweight, he still packs on a lot of muscle at that particular weight, and he's difficult to move around the cage. He really is. But Dvalishvili just smothered him like we expected with takedown after takedown after takedown. Whether Jose Aldo was able to stop him in those takedowns, which for the majority of the fight he was, really didn't matter because, like I had predicted, a lot of that fight took place on the cage, and Dvalishvili just punched him alongside the cage, controlled the octagon, controlled the fight, maybe didn't land the best shots, but landed more, and got his hand raised. So that's the kind of fight I would expect Aljamain Sterling to have a little more trouble with, to be honest. He had significantly more trouble. Sure, it's grappler versus grappler, but Dvalishvili is just relentless. Whereas Aljamain Sterling likes to feel as though he's the, more well-rounded, fully skilled mixed martial artist. His striking will be a little bit of an advantage, but not much, because I expect the majority of that fight to, again, take place alongside the cage or take place on the ground. And the real difference between the two of them is that Aljamain Sterling always looks tired when he gets into the championship rounds. He does not have the same cardio, relentless engine that Dvalishvili has. So if the two of them were to face, I would actually give the edge to Dvalishvili. That being said, he maybe doesn't match up as well against the rest of the division as well as Aljamain Sterling does. So Aljamain Sterling is really a suitable champion for this division. He matches up well against everyone, but Dvalishvili could be sort of like his kryptonite, could be what is enough of a relentless pressure to prevent him from landing what he would like to do, imposing his will, but more importantly, burning him out and having him gas before the fight comes to an end. I like Dvalishvili, so for me, Dvalishvili is the real deal, and that's the bantamweights.